Hey, everybody, it's Rod Wilson with the Optimized Real Estate Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Today I have Tony Diaz on with us. What's happening, Tony?
Good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time. I know we'll get into it here in a minute, but I know you got a ton of stuff going on. Obviously, very seasoned fix and flipper, but what I've come to learn over the last few months is basically you're also an entrepreneur and kind of a tech guru, which we will, I'm sure, cover towards the end here. But yeah, thanks for taking the time. I guess just to, kind of jump in, why don't you share for everybody your background?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Rod. So I've been in the business since 2004. So that's 28 years now. My parents were both in the business, mortgage and real estate, and they were also buying and fixing real estate here in the local. I'm based out of the Upland area, Upland, Ontario. So they were buying houses out in the Fontana Rialto market. And over the weekends, my parents would drag me out, help me, have me help them out with the linoleum and changing toilets. And of course, at, 14, 15 years old, it's not a lot of fun. You want to be out with your friends, but
Right.
it kind of started the fire. So that was kind of the beginning of my introduction to the flipping part. I did get my license at 18, right out of high school. And I just kind of fell in love with it.
That's funny. Yeah, I tried that with my kids. It didn't work so well. I tried to drag them around. They're like, this is terrible.
All right.
It's so funny. So maybe like, one thing that comes to mind is you mentioned 04. So you probably had some fun with the rest of us through the financial crisis.
Yeah, what's interesting is that when I came into that market, they were like, "Oh, market's horrible," and I didn't know what good or bad was. I just knew that there are certain things you had to do to get a transaction. My first year, I started out with Century 21. My mother said, "Hey, go learn the ropes from somebody else, right? A company is going to show you the process and the system." And at 18, I was able to get Rookie of the Year. And the year after that, I got Top Listing Agent.
Wow.
And I didn't know any better. I did have a good mentor. The office manager and I became good friends. And the guy gave me probably the best advice that somebody especially young could have gotten. I was looking to become part of those coaches and trainers, and I was going to pay a bunch of money to get the yellow jacket and the all that stuff that you think you need to have as a realtor. And
Right.
my mentor office manager basically said, "Hey, give me $1 and I'm going to tell you my secret." And he says, "But you have to do what I tell you." I said, "All right." And this is back in the days where there's no MLS. It was a book. So you had your printout of the active properties, and then you get your supplemental weekly book of price changes, expireds, and things like that. So he basically said, show up at 7:30, come in, spend 2 hours, leave. I don't care what you do. Come back at 4 and spend another 2 hours, and that's all you're gonna do. And I came in, and the first thing, he throws the book in front of me. He says, "Call." And I said, "What do I say?" He says, "I don't care. Call. You promised me you're gonna do this." And of course, I started kind of going through the process, uncomfortable. It took me about 2 weeks to kind of get my rhythm. And then I started getting some traction, and I kind of became obsessed with it. And I got Top Listing Agent at my second year, and it was just good old grind. And I just didn't know any better. People thought, which is, not, it doesn't matter. But back then, people said, "Oh, your mom's giving you the listings," because they knew my mom was a successful real estate agent. I just, no, it's all me. It's all me. But of course, you got your mother's blood and a good mentor, and I was very well coached. And I just did have that fire and that want of wanting to be successful. So that was kind of my first taste into the real estate and into the money. So it was very interesting, a lot of fun, and kind of probably an early understanding that there's no magic pill, that you just got to grind it out. So that
Right.
was a really, really good intro to the business. And of course, I had enough money and I went and just screwed it all off and spent the whole thing and just got myself in trouble. Too much money too quick.
You have to learn that lesson too.
Oh, sure.
That's a
And
hard
I learned
one.
it very early.
No, that sounds like a Gary Keller. I think he has a similar story. It's like he started so young. He's like, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that you can't just go out
Yeah,
and, just grind it out and be successful. I thought you had to be really
right.
smart or really, experienced or whatever. So that's a great lesson. Man, there's a lot of things to unpack there, man. I mean, yeah, just the grind and, people complain about the market, this and that. And there's, there's always someone buying and there's always someone selling is the bottom
For
line.
sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
so, how about let's transition. So more currently, maybe just give us kind of a quick view or, picture of your business today. You started as an agent, you were grinding it out, became very successful. I'm sure you're like, wait a minute, I see these developers making all this money. I want to go do that.
Sure.
Yeah. How did you transition? I guess number one, and then what are you up to today?
So the transition was interesting. Like I mentioned, the office manager, my mentor at that time, ended up having to leave out of town, and he actually left me with 3 REO accounts. And this is right about when I was 18, 19. So I became an REO agent very young, and obviously part of my success. So along with a call and this new accounts I had, I started selling to investors. I had already bought my first house. So I started trying to buy the properties that I was getting from the listing. And my asset manager said, hey, listen, you can't do that. I can't give you listings if you're going to buy them. And to me, it seemed more interesting to purchase the properties than to be the listing agent. And I kind of said, hey, listen, I want to buy this. And he says, well, I can't give you business, but there's, you can purchase property. So I kind of got into that, went all the way through from the 90s, started buying gold and feather. This is back in the HUD days. That market kind of disappeared. We got into the 2000s. And as we kind of evolved, right, we started looking into, hey, we're good at flipping. Maybe we can start building them. So that's one of those great ideas you have, right? So I started getting into buying dirt. We had some capital, started buying dirt and entitling lots, and that in itself was a huge learning curve. So from 2000 to about 2008, we ended up building about 150 homes from the ground up. So we did really well. At the time, right before the crash, I had 3 tracks open, one in Claremont, one in Colton, and a small one here in Upland. I'm in my early 30s and I'm counting the money. My houses are selling for a bunch of money. Life's good. I'm driving really nice cars, wearing some fancy stuff, and everything you would do at a young age, just blow off the money as fast as you can. And sure enough, 2008, came in and ripped me apart, to the point of having to be there at a corner of Walnut, or actually, Walnut and Central in the city of Chino. There's a gas station there, and I'm ran out of gas, and I don't have a dime, and I'm just literally parked there crying because just frustration out of more than anything. And I had to call my mother, and she had to drive up from Altaloma to lend me $100 to put gas in my car. So
wow,
it's just a story that I'm sure anybody that made it through has the same thing. I got sued for a crazy amount of money. Long story short, I didn't have to bankrupt because my attorney basically said, hey, just tough it out, work it out with everybody, pay as many people as you can off. And that was actually great advice, since I was able to keep really a lot of those relationships, including my investors and my hard money lenders, and they helped me evolve and pivot to the opportunities that happened right after the crash. And we just started buying again. So we went from flipping to developing to now being in a position where we had an opportunity through some of the nonprofits we were working with on the infill development to start buying properties directly through the NSP, which was the Neighborhood Stabilization Plan. If you guys recall, was the government giving money to the cities for them to buy properties, the foreclosures. The problem and the reality of that concept was that the cities didn't have the infrastructure. The nonprofits weren't sophisticated enough, so they were doing a private-public partnership. And we were one of the first entities to kind of figure that relationship out and do it well. And we just picked up and we went from buying 1 to 2 to 20 to 30 a month, and it just completely blew up. So we, that time over the 4-year, roughly about 3-year period, we did over 500 houses. And
Wow.
it was a nightmare. It was really, really a nightmare. Both because, you know, you get to become good at what you do, and you usually run you have one assistant and a few people who work for you. Going from that to 25 employees. At that time, I'd been with Anchor forever. I became your number 2 borrower from Anchor for about 2 years, and I had a $28 million line, paying close to, I was paying back there, hard money was hard money.
Yeah.
I was paying 4 points in 12. And that was mortgage were every month, right? So paying out 280 grand a month in payments plus overhead. Man, it was fun. We ended up closing out and doing really well, but I got to a point that it just became too much. I had 192 houses open at one time, not doing a good job because it was just too much. And I stopped buying. I fired a bunch of people. Got rid of the inventory, closed everything out, and then I became obsessed with how to take advantage of that opportunity again if it ever came across. And I realized that required technology and processes. So I started getting really into books like The E-Myth, Build to Sell, and things like that. So all those type of books really opened my eyes to understanding, hey, it's not just about knowing your trade, but truly understanding processes and systems. And that's where I really shifted from saying a typical 1 or 2 a month investor to the development to having a huge opportunity, but not truly take advantage of it because we didn't have the processes and it came too big and too quick. So that's where we invested a bunch of money in the technology. I focused on that for almost 5 years, and we built this platform that we now have. And it's been really my obsession for the last, since 2015. So it's been about 7 years. And that in itself, it's a completely new monster. So it's a shift from flipping a few to development of new construction and fill, going through the crash, doing some high volume flipping, which was tough. And now I'm getting to technology. So I had shifted within the same industry quite a few times, became rounded in a lot of it, but not an expert of any of it.
Right.
So it was interesting. Yeah, but you know, it was a very good living all the way through. Oh, it was painful. But we did make very good money as we processed through all that, those pivots and learning experiences.
Well, it's the old, be careful what you wish for and be careful what you build. And, you know, you gotta, you build it a certain way thinking that, you know, it's just going to, the cash will solve everything. And then, you know, you basically created a job, you know, that you just really don't enjoy or like. And then it's funny too. You made a great comment that I'm going to use, but because I was the same way. I've dealt with, you know, I've been doing this for a while and dealt with some pretty high interest rates, and obviously rates have gone up, and, you know, I get a lot of people saying, oh my God, the rates, this and that. It's, they've been doing this a few years. I'm like, hey, rates are still really cheap in the big scheme of things.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit because we'll get into kind of what your thoughts are on on finding great deals and just, and I'm sure that'll kind of dovetail into the platform you've built. But one thing kind of just clicked in my head too is, one of the big questions out there is, are we kind of working our way into another '08? Do we see, is it going to crash? Obviously the media is taking advantage of some of the shifting in the market, making a big splash, and it's like the world's coming to an end, which we know it's not. So
Right.
I was just curious. And I was with you. I was in land, a lot of land, back in '07, '08. And, it would have been nice to be in some buildings or, something other than land. 'Cause man, that drops like a rock. But,
It sure
are there
does.
any similarities? What, if you had to give your kind of general feel of, where this market is going, given what you've gone through, it'd be, maybe great to get that from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, I don't listen to the news. I get I love data. So I do spend a lot of time in the information world, very specific to real estate. And I'm looking at the real statistics. I first have my thumb in the pulse, and my thumb in the pulse by my own inventory. That tells me a lot. I have been very fortunate over the years to get to meet some great flippers that do a lot of volume, so we bounce information back and forth. And there's definitely the difference between last time is, I remember the word soft landing. So when I heard it again, that was in '08, and I was part of the BIA, the Building Industrial Association, and the word was soft landing. And when I heard it again, my stomach hurt, because that just told me we're screwed.
Yeah.
The people had no clue what was going on. So to me, I would say the main difference right now is that you are going to have a very limited amount of supply to flood the market. We saw that they learned from the previous foreclosure issue we had in '08 that it's better to keep people in homes. You saw the big fix they did over at the COVID period. And I believe that if the market gets to change for a big enough where you're going to have a foreclosure issue, I think the government will step in again and stop the foreclosures and essentially pause the freeze. So you're not going to have an inventory issue, in my opinion, like you had in those years. So that in itself is something that I did see the government's done well. Obviously, we all get to pay for it one way or another, but it does help versus allowing things to just fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't believe that you're definitely going to have adjustments. The prices went up way too fast. They printed way too much money. 80% of all money in circulation was printed in the last few years. So to me, you have a conflicting, in my head, I don't understand how they think raising the rates is going to make a difference when you print so much money. That's naturally going to go up. And again, I don't understand that market well enough to know what the fix is, but I tell you, things are going to continue you kill the buyer's ability. There's no inventory. It's a weird balance. I don't think a lot of people really understand it. And I haven't seen anybody with a good, consistent message across the board that makes sense to me. And all it is just everybody's adjusting their numbers every week. And there's a lot less applications, a lot less transactions, and there's going to be the way to look at the data, right? You have the listings and the price reductions at almost 50%, and then you have your buyers. The fact is that your listings, there's people that said, hey, I'm missing the market, I got to jump back in. They're way overpriced, hoping that they can get that market. And then there's what I call the must sellers, right? I'm a must seller. I'm sitting on hard money. I have to sell. I don't want to hold on to the property. I overpaid. I bought it right at the peak, right? So I have to sell. So I don't pay attention to the fluff on top. I pay attention to the bottom. And there's definitely been some changes. We're going to take haircuts. And I think the smartest thing we can do as investors is redeploy. Get rid of our product as fast as we can. Put our our capital back in our pocket, whether if we're gonna get a loss or not make any money. I think that's not as relevant as being able to get out of your properties as fast as possible, because we're starting to see good deals. And I'm talking deals that I would actually consider keeping now because they start cash flowing.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be a change. It's going to be very market specific, product specific. At this point, as an investor, you can't buy anything with obsolescence, busy streets, and things like that. Now you have to really get the right product. You can't get away with a crap rehab anymore. You have to really do a good job, and you have to price them right. You can't forget what the highest sold is what's active, what's pending, how fast they're moving. And as a matter of fact, we don't even look at stuff that's 30 days or older in our solds. Our comps are the pendings. That's really where the market is. And then the actives, there's a lot of noise. So you got to really know, and you got to pick up the phone and talk to those pending agents and really get a gauge where they are. But to answer the question is, there's going to be enough change that if you're not moving fast enough, you're going to get hurt. And whether if you're going to lose money or not make any money, that in itself, to me, it's going to get hurt. I don't see it to be that big of an issue. And I think, in my opinion, the government moved the rate too fast, scared the consumer that already had an affordability issue. And I think a lot of people are going to sit on the sideline creating more problems. I just don't think you're going to have a huge depreciation because there's no inventory. So I think I basically said what everybody's saying. I said nothing. It's just, it's my opinion. Everybody has their own.
Hey, I was just going to say,
it.
for everyone to pause the video right now or the podcast and go back, because those were like the golden nuggets, man, that you just shared probably a couple minutes ago, which is, you just don't sit there on your hands and think this, a market's going to like solve your problems. It's like, you got to take action. And one of the things that rings in my mind, a buddy told me this, and I got to be honest, man, I didn't listen. And if I would have, it would have been, a lot more, restful nights, put it that way. But he said, get ugly early. He's a big multifamily developer. And he's like, when a market starts doing what started happening in 07, 08, he's like, you get ugly early and get off it. And then the reason to do that, which you just stated, is the whole, redeploy. I mean, now, because I not to get into my story, but I felt like I felt like I had PTSD after going through that, because I did probably the dumbest thing. I didn't get ugly early. I was trying to save projects. I deployed a ton more of my own capital and debt. And so I just dug my grave, I guess, even deeper on in 08. But it was kind of good to hear you say that. And I think it's such a different market and different circumstances, to where I think if you can stay healthy and not let the mindset get to where I'm screwed, I've, lost all this money on these deals, whatever, and redeploy and stay active, I think, guys will fare very well through this transition. So
Absolutely.
let's transition a bit, I guess. So I'm excited to talk about the marketplace and Flip XL. Just in general, can you share some, I guess, thoughts, ideas on where do you think the low-hanging fruit is, especially in a shifting market like we're seeing today? Where do you find the best deals?
Good question. I mean, I think if you go back to my first comment, there's no magic pill. That book we all read, where, Who Moved My Cheese? It's the same thing, right? You're still within the same question, where's the inventory? But it's when it's short sales, you just figure that out. When it's REO, I think in this case, it's the relationships with agents, to me, has been one of the strongest and our most consistent way of inventory. The seller direct in itself is also very good, but it's a very challenging market to get into. Especially if you've never done it. There's a lot of money to be spent before you get the process. But I would say right now what we've done is we kept and continue to grow the relationship with the agents. Agents in general are able to coach or walk a homeowner through a process that a seller can't realize on their own as quickly. So we get to see the people that are in the market that we're offering, that the agents are able to communicate our offers to them in a better way because they've been sitting on the market. They realize that their offers are coming in at a certain amount. There's enough offers coming in for them to get a pattern of where the price is going to be. And we're even noticing that the agents saying they'll accept your offer, but they want to hold to see if something else better comes in 2 weeks. So we're even sitting on offers that they're like, we have accepted a verbally accepted price, but they still want to see what's going to happen. The other thing we're seeing quite a bit is the sellers are actually pulling out of the market once they actually get to be told. And of course, we're talking assets, properties that need work, right? Not the ones that are in great condition, which is obviously what we chase as investors. But we're seeing that a lot. So the agents are doing a good job to communicate that information to a seller, and they're pulling out, or they're saying, yes, I'll accept it, but give me a couple of weeks. We're seeing price reductions of $150,000 on $700,000-800,000 homes, which is a big percentage. But we're also, being very aggressive on what we're offering.
Right.
Whether we ever bought in 2013 and 14, there's a bunch of properties to buy, but there's no buyers. We never really been in a market where you buy them really cheap and sell them really expensive. There's always the challenge, right? So I think right now we just got to understand that the sellers have to understand the pain. There has to be a necessity for the seller to sell. So we use our technology to kind of read between, or see between the behind the curtain and understand the reason of selling with our technology, and being consistent and patient with the agents has been the way that we're moving through, and is still acquiring at a price where it makes sense. And the other things, I'm buying stuff that I can get out very quickly. So no ADUs, no city work. I got to get in, get out in 30-45 days, be back in the market. And then I'm going to price it very aggressively. And I'm not expecting those big, 18-20% returns. I'm looking for a solid 10-12, and I'm out. So that's been the agent relationship side. What we're finding on the seller direct side is that their necessity versus them reaching out to us, still lagging about 2 to 3 months behind the agents, because they're not being informed quick enough that the market has left.
Right.
So, and this is the worst thing you can hear as an investor trying to purchase a seller direct market is, well, Zillow says, or my neighbor just sold 3 months ago for this price and my house is better, so I want more. So we're starting to see that if there's no real necessity on the seller side, they're not going to sell.
Right.
They're just going to sit there and expect an unrealistic number. And we're so far off with those sellers. I'm talking 200,000-300,000.
Right.
And for them, they're like, wow, I'm just going to call somebody else. And, it's crazy. But that consistency with the agent relationship has worked very well for us. And educating the agents and being respectful to who they are and the seller's necessity. Say, hey, this is my offer. This is why. If you have something better, take it. If not, I'm going to be here. And we get a lot of callbacks.
Right.
So that's what's been working for us.
No, that makes total sense. In fact, I'm curious because I, in the case where the sellers, or, even whether it's a realtor or not, if you're direct or not, in a case where they say, well, they don't want to let you go just yet. They want to, test the market. how do you treat that? Do you give them an offer and they sit on it, and you just give them a day or a week or a couple weeks? Or do you typically just say, look, my offer is good for whatever, 48 hours.
Right.
And, if all due respect, I'm going to go buy something else if you don't want to
Sure.
sell me your house.
So what we started using recently is, and this is out of the experiences we had, is like, hey, my offer is this today. We have a very quick, very rapidly depreciating market. Next 2 weeks or a month is not going to be the same. So we're using that, and it's interesting, we get that call back where somebody gets in the market, they sit there for 30, 60 days, they come back and they say, okay, remember that offer for 900? We're like, yeah, it's 850 now.
Yeah.
And, and that's what we're using, we're training, or we're educating the agent for them to take the information and bring back to their homeowners. But again, I can provide the best reason why a seller should accept our offer. If there's no necessity on the back end for them to sell it at a discount, they're just going to pull out of the market.
Well, that's what
why you have so many.
Yeah. The first question always is like, what's the motivation?
Sure.
If there's no motivation, if there's not necessarily, obviously it's better if it's distress, but even if it's not distress, but there's some pretty strong motivation. I mean, it's one of the two. And if it's not there, especially like I see this as that, that, I don't know, an analogy be that crossing the chasm or whatever that curve is, where market has started declining, but like you said, either it could be agents as well, but a lot of times it's just, homeowners, sellers, they're just not in, kind of in tune with what the market is doing from a value perspective. They're looking at Zillow, they're looking at historical stuff that is just almost irrelevant.
Correct.
And that's the one thing I will say about the media that helps our business is, they're acting like the world's coming to an end, and it maybe not to that degree, but there has been a correction, and until the seller gets that in their head, I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to give you the number you need.
Yep. Yeah. So you have an interesting market, right? The other side is, you put yourself on a buyer's perspective, whether if you're going to be an investor, owner occupied. I mean, it's scary, right? So you're listening to, well, the rates, and then the news, and then you got, are we going to get blown up here, nuclear war, and
No kidding.
it's just so many things that you're having to look at. I mean, the consumer confidence piece, I believe that whoever's out there buying is a good buyer, right? They're limited by their how much the rate has impacted their payment. And we take that in consideration. I mean, I just put a little property, not expensive. It'll appraise at 550, 560 all day long. We priced it really well at 489. We bought it well. We got one offer after about a week, and the answer is yes. We took it. It was, at list price. Is it a great offer? No. Can I justify maybe getting 10, 20 grand more? Yes, but I'm not going to sit there, because to your point, right? You sit there for a month or two and you get yourself in trouble. But
and the cost of carry just ate up that,
right.
Right. What you really wanted.
And the loss of opportunity. So it's not just the cost of carry, right?
Worse.
If I sit on this thing for 4 months, I'd rather take the money and deploy it again, because I'll tell you, and you said this a little bit earlier, right? There is a reason to be concerned. There's no question. But to me right now, this is very exciting, because you're one of your first questions, right? In 94, market was bad. I didn't know it was good or bad. In after 08, I was still a little too green and too much opportunity. This is my, in 2018 or 17, there's that July shift down for a minute for 6 months. So I've gone through enough ups and downs that I can tell you I've never been so excited. And to me, the excitement is, hey, if I position myself correctly, and as soon as I know where the bottom is, this is going to be fun. This is going to be an opportunity. Forget what you're paying for a property, right? Because we know this money printing is inflating things. The houses are not going to go down as much as before. You're never going to see the same way we're picking up houses in Victorville in 2014 for 99,000. You'll never see that again, in my opinion. But you can still get them for 300,000, and they still rent for 2,500, right? So it's equivalent to that same point. So for us, we're setting ourselves up to have the right capital. We have, now that we've been working on the technology for a while, we have the ability to truly scale. And through the partnerships that I've been able to make with some very experienced people in the last few years, now we're in a position where we can help others do what we're doing through the platforms that we put together. So I believe just be careful, be diligent, but I think we're coming up to a very good opportunity. Whether if it's 6 months, a year, or two, I'm not sure, but I know there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Yep, I agree. So let's jump into, by the way, I really want to ask you a couple other questions, but in respectful of your time, I think we'll jump into the platform and technology, because you just said finding the bottom. That's good. That'll be the topic of the next podcast we do. How do you find the bottom? Anyway, so let's jump into the technology platform, the marketplace. If you're in, again, feel free to share as much or as little as you want. I know it's not fully, fully launched and live, but.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few years ago, I was blessed to meet a gentleman by the name of Jim Sicasio. He was the founder, one of the founders and a CEO for 11 years of Realty Track. And I was referred to him through a mutual friend, and Jim comes from the growth and turnaround world, very different skill set that I have. And we were able to bring together our skill sets, him from the ability to grow, the technology, the background, and for us of how to do things and how to put them into systems and processes. So he came to us, and I had my thought was, hey, I'm going to go to this guy. I'm going to give him my technology. He's going to build it, and it's going to be fantastic, right? His smart approach was like, show me it works before I put my name on it. And show me it works wasn't, give me a demo, but let's go flip a bunch of houses and wholesale. And I want to see how this really works in order for me to go out and bring it to my people so we can make this a real platform. So a few years, it was painful. I changed a lot of my staff, and now we have new people. And I'm very grateful for the team that I had before because I grew with them. I'm also very grateful for the new team we have. And we're at a position where we build two platforms. One of them, as you mentioned, is called Flip Excel. Flip letter X, letter L. You can see it at .com. That is it's a full enterprise solution. So that's for the big boys, for the guys that are looking to flip. If you're doing 20 to 50 a year, it's a platform that'll help you do everything. It's very robust. It does everything. It takes a minute to get your head around it and get onboarded, but it's everything all the way from finding a property, communicating with the agent, the evaluation process, the follow through, the reporting, the communication side of it, the management, all the way down to data collection, breaking down costs based on other comps, creating scope of works. And it even breaks down the cost of constructions down to a SKU number level. So if you're doing quantity, if you're doing volume, this is a beautiful machine. It would work for a hedge fund as well as a guy, like I said, doing 20 plus that wants to go from 20 to 100 a year. So that platform, we've been working on it for a while. We just hired a new tech team that we're really, really excited about. and they've been involved in some big builds. So they're going to be able to take us to the next level. And the other piece that we build out is Fair Close. Fair Close is a marketplace, and we created eventually. It's a two-sided marketplace. It helps bring everything that we've seen that's good about wholesalers, agents, buyers, and how to put all this together and empower the person that brings value to the platform. So what we looked at is there's a bunch of really good platforms out there. We started first looking at systems that we can integrate into ours without having to build. And we realized that even though there's some good systems, they missed the biggest element that wholesaling or sourcing is all about. And it's one thing, and it's one thing only, and it's relationships. You cannot sell, you cannot wholesale a property to a buyer without knowing what they want and how they're able to perform, right? Through technology, I can tell you, we have literally every single buyer in California that's bought anything in the last 5 years. I know who they are. I know what they bought. I know who they borrowed from. I know what agent representing them. I represented them on the listing, on the purchase, on the resale. So we're data rich. I have a huge map. I know who does what. So we have that information, but I don't have a relationship with those people. I know that agent that does. So what we realize is, why don't we, instead of having every single wholesaler or anybody that wants to wholesale a property have to invest a huge amount of time to create their buyers list, why not we collectively bring our buyers list together and we get to monetize it by being able to put a price to a buyer? So I can give you an example. So if I invite you to the platform and you're an investor and you're doing 10 deals a year, I'm going to say, hey, Rod, I'm going to invite you to Fair Close. Every time you buy a property, pay me $1,000. You're going to sit there and say, sure. The way it works is you come in, I send you an invitation, you accept the terms and conditions. So now there's that understanding and agreement. So you cannot go around me and essentially buy the property next transaction without me getting paid, which is great. So it protects my buyers list. And the reason you're going to stay as a buyer is because you're going to receive properties not only from me, but from realtors that post the property, from other investors that post the property, from large buyers that are doing a bunch of properties like, I'll keep the names out of it, but there's a lot of big buyers that are out there that are wholesaling inventory. And this is where we are all going to be able to come together. And the buyers are going to see really good opportunities. We'll be able to add buyers and monetize our buyers list. And there's no platform that does that. And you're going to be able to do this all through an application. The best part is there's no sign-up fees, no membership fees. If you go through any other wholesaling platform, they usually charge, 2%. We're charging $500 at close of escrow. So essentially, if we don't bring value to you, you don't pay us anything. So from a wholesaler perspective, I'll give you the concept. I have 50 buyers. I come to Fair Close. I post the property. The system sends it out to my 50. And we use tax data to recognize who those 50 buyers are that are in your list, and all the other buyers that we collectively brought to the platform that you don't have in your list. The property goes out, you get a bunch of bids, you choose the offer that is the highest netting offer to you with the best rated buyer. And based on that, you get to sell the property for more than you would to your own buyers network. So to me, the goal is to bring you value by being part of this application. If the highest netting offer is your own, we don't charge you anything because we didn't bring you value. So it means that somebody outside of your list paid you more than your own list. you're netting more and we're just charging you $500 for that. So that's the concept. The other thing is we're inviting agents for them to be able to post properties and double end them. We've been working with Cloud CMA on a program called Investor Connect. So if you're an agent, when you're doing a Cloud CMA and it says, hey, here's, would you like to see a cash offer? We are the entity behind those cash offers. We've done quite a few transactions. We build a huge amount of relationship with agents. The only difference is before it was just me making you one offer. Now you have the entire network, and the beauty from an agent's perspective is no matter who buys it, you're going to double end the property. So it's going to give a huge incentive for realtors to come here and post the property because they're going to be able to double end the property. But more importantly, they get to double end the property with an investor. They get to know who they are. There's a track record behind them. And there's also a peer-to-peer rating system that lets the agents know who they are and how they transact.
So bottom line I mean, I see this being huge value, especially given the, you know, what the market's been doing, and huge value for guys that were typically focused on fix and flip, now having a really easy way to be able to wholesale a particular deal they don't want. Like you're saying, you know, for one, I think it's smart to be in kind of the quicker turn model. I guess it depends on your buy, but, you know, don't get stuck into something for, you know, years for sure. But yeah, having these guys that are typically don't really, cause it takes a lot of work to go generate and create and, you know, assimilate a buyer's list. It's just, that's not easy.
Right.
I've been, you know, I've been part of various mastermind and coaching groups and whatever over the years. And my buyer's list was never that great. So this sounds like the ultimate buyer's list for sellers and wholesalers. And then from a buyer perspective, if you are a fix and flipper and looking for good deals, I mean, these will be, you know, you'll be able to find amazing deals without, you know, having to sift through and wonder, you know, who's bringing it? Is it real? Is it worth looking at? Do I spend all my time on all these crappy deals that are way overpriced? I mean, you've eliminated all that as well.
Yeah, very, very good point. I mean, the platform's hard to explain it over a podcast like this, but if I was to summarize it, it is a marketplace of validated properties. So to your point, you don't have to go look for them. They're delivered to you based on your buy box, right? So that minimizes your investment of time. We validate every single property and we make sure that's a real deal, the same way you would. So you're getting that information based on your buy box. So from a buyer's perspective is, you know, when something's coming through your phone, it's something that makes sense because we validated it. And more importantly, it's based on your purchase preference, your buy box. On the other side of it, from a posting perspective, as I was saying, it's all about relationships. So when a new buyer comes through, it's an invitation only. So you have to, as the buyer, be invited by another member or one of our affiliates. And when you come in as a buyer, you have to be validated, verified, and certified, which means that when you come in, there has to be a track record behind your name that says, I've done this many transactions, so I'm a real investor. And there's also going to be a verification that we have your articles and your proof of fund. So we verify and certify each buyer. The other good thing that we work with that helps you understand and know who they are, is we create a post-close rating system that when you purchase a property, it's going to ask you that you put the deposit on time, that they remove contingencies on time, that they renegotiate the deal, and they close on time. So when I purchase a property through the platform, and if I don't do a good job or I try to renegotiate the deal in the middle of the transaction, that's going to hurt my buy rating. If the listing person that plays the property doesn't communicate, doesn't provide correct information, they're going to get dinged on their rating, right? We go to restaurants because they have a good Yelp rating. This is a way for us to keep each other accountable and know who we're dealing with, not because we work with each other, but because we have a peer rating system that says, hey, this guy closes on time and he does a great job and he's done 48 transactions. And by the way, this is his offer. That gives you the confidence to know that you're dealing with a true buyer, the same way you would have a relationship with somebody that you sold 10 houses to.
Right.
So that to me is the core of what the system is and what I haven't seen any other platform. Don't get me wrong, there's some good stuff out there. There's some other platforms that we had considered going with, but we just could not find something that truly brought those relationships together. So we believe that's going to be a game changer. We took away any type of barrier to entry. So no membership fees, no sign-up fees, invite only. So if you want to just become part of it, but you don't have a listing, or if you don't have buyers, you know, you're welcome, but you have to bring value. So until you have a buyer or you have a listing, then we're not gonna just have you in the platform. We don't want your $99. We want your value.
Right. No,
So
exactly. And shysters, no need to apply.
Exactly. Right. And you know, it's just to take away. So when you look at the real estate community, the broker community, they don't like wholesalers. And you know, the reason they don't is because as a wholesaler, you have to, in a way, misrepresent yourself to an agent in order to type a contract. So you can have an opportunity to turn around and sell it to your buyers for a fee. In this case, you don't need to misrepresent your intent. All you have to do is you have to add your buyers to the list. When that buyer comes in and buys something, you're going to make a fee. So, you know, it makes it a lot easier when you place that property. You know, it's not going to be a wholesaler. So we do not allow any assignments in the platform. You have to be the buyer. So this gives the confidence for a realtor to post the property to know that they're dealing with the real buyer. And
Right.
again, it doesn't matter who buys it, the agent's going to double in 100% of the time. So it's a huge incentive for them to bring inventory to the platform.
I love it. Well, we should probably wrap this thing up. And by the way, as full disclosure, I mean, we're talking and we're going to be doing something together here soon. So stay tuned. Hopefully have some info for you guys, and as well as just being able to kind of put this thing on the map and get it, you know, at least in California. California is going to be the initial rollout. So Tony, I really appreciate the time again, man. Just to kind of wrap it up, where should people go? I mean, you mentioned flipxl.com, fairclose.com, any other ways, or, you know, that you'd want people to kind of reach out?
You know what? Go to fairclose.com. That's a good starting point. If you guys want to know more about the full enterprise solution, if you're a flipper that or you're looking to grow and go from, you know, you're putting together a bunch of systems, so you want to see how to get to the next level, give us a call. We'll show you. We'll demo this. It's a great system. If you want to come into the platform, again, it's no sign-up fees, no monthly fees. Go to fairclose.com and just sign up. We're going to be launching this year very soon. We have a huge waiting list already. So right now we're just working out a few little bugs, and we're going to be launching this year very quickly.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for the time. We'll have to have a follow-up here in the coming weeks and months.
I really appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
All right, bud. See you, Tony.